Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for taking time to be here today. I want to start by just underscoring the need for serious reform at the CFPB. It's something that I've obviously discussed with you. I have been willing to put in writing, and so just want to take this last hearing to really cement that. What we've seen over the last 4 years is just, I feel like, blatant misuse and a politicization of the agencies in ways that I believe it wasn't intended. The CFPB has transformed into a regulatory nightmare for the exact people and businesses that it's supposed to look out for. When you look at the way it's structured, you have one director, you have no board, you have no votes, and really, outside of our opportunity to ask you questions in this setting, no real congressional oversight. And when you have just one solo director with nearly unlimited leeway to push his or her own agenda, you know, that's where I have a real issue. We've seen over the last several years, and we're seeing even, now after the election, that despite a clear repudiation of this administration's policies from the American people, that the CFPB is the only financial agency that has continued to push out last-second rulemaking. In my opinion, it's unacceptable, and reforming the CFPB should be an immediate priority for the next Congress. I also want to note again my serious concern with some of the regulations that have been promulgated under your direction. Your efforts to eliminate medical debt from credit reports, for instance. I know we had a conversation about this and we talked about the accuracy of those, and I want to make sure that those are accurate. But we also talked about what this could do to rural hospitals in my state and in states all across the country that are hanging on by a thread. And so taking these things into consideration, not just conversation, but really understanding the cumulative impact of the things we're doing and understanding that the people that you are trying to help, this may actually hurt. Looking at things in a more comprehensive way, I think, is imperative. And in this instance in particular, if more of our rural hospitals close their doors, it's going to leave thousands of people without medical care within hours of their home. Or if you look at your 1071 rule that you and I had a good back and forth on at a previous hearing, the compliance costs alone are literally putting at risk community banks in a multitude of ways. And so when we look at, how these things affect the big guy, I always talk about what is the trickle-down effect to Main Street? What is the trickle-down effect to the community bank, the relationship banking that they get to do? And so I want to make sure that the agency continues to look at those cumulative impacts and how rules like this immediately hurt truly the most vulnerable. Meanwhile, we have financial fraud issues that are running rampant. Americans are being scammed out of almost $9 billion per year. And I believe our own Consumer Protection Agency seems to be nowhere to be found. And so I want to talk to you about that and give you an opportunity to maybe show me where you have been doing some things. So when were you confirmed at the CFPB?
I believe it was September 30th, 2021.
Love that you've got the exact date right there. So per my review of the CFPB's website since that date, you've published 78 of your speeches as director. Do you know how many of those speeches focused on financial frauds and scam education?
Scam education?
Mhm.
Well, I don't know how many of them, but certainly we have done so much when it comes to cracking down and combating fraud. Just last week, Senator Britt, we sent $38 million to 93,000 Alabamans
Well, I
who were
appreciate
involved in a very harmful scam. And we're also looking upstream at where these scammers can really get some of the key data to perpetrate their crime. Senator Cortez Masto just asked me about data brokers, where we know people can buy data about older Americans and others
And
who are
so
vulnerable.
one of the things that I'm concerned about is when I looked at your speeches, I found just one that actually addressed that. And then when I went back and looked at your blog post, which we know is extremely controversial depending on who you ask and kind of regulation by blog post, which I think is inappropriate, I also only found one when it came down to this. And when I look at the core functions on your website that say, what is the CFPB about? One of your core functions says it is to enhance, financial education. And when I looked at your budget that you put out, it looked that you requested, in addition to the 700 million, about 142 million, so about over 840 million dollars to be used at your discretion. But when I looked at the actual investments that were made and I know I'm out of time, but in actual education, it looked at it was only about 5.7 million. And so as the agency moves forward, I feel like actual education of consumers that are being scammed and harmed has to be of the utmost priority.